we've been working together for many years, and being in Australia, we often start with an acknowledgement of country. And what I wanted to do is just reflect that I'm sitting here in Melbourne whilst we're meeting virtually, and I'm sitting on the lands of the Wurundjeri as the traditional custodians of this land. So we often start our meetings by paying respect to those from the Wurundjeri and other communities on the lands of which we meet. And if you wanted to go ahead and type in a similar acknowledgement of country, if you know the traditional custodians of the land on which you're sitting, I'd love to share that with people. So just go ahead and type that in the Zoom chat if you like. So I'm sitting on the Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nations in Australia. Gadigal, nice. Thanks, Margie. Thanks, Wendy. Shoshone and Pelt Peoples. And look, the other thing that we're bringing to you today is effectively an insight into the International Association for Public Participation framework for what makes for good public participation. So this is something that Margie, Wendy and I are very passionate about. We spent our careers in, and when I was introduced to this framework 20 years ago, I found it super useful. But we're giving you a quick insight into something that, you know, we can follow up with you later if you're interested. It's touching on things lightly for the moment. So I'll move on and just recap what we actually want to get out of the session with you today. And I'm not going to bang on about IP2, but it's an organisation that some of you may know about, may have come across. It's got lots of synergies with IAF, and it's a group of affiliates globally as well, in the US, in Australasia, in Africa, in Italy, in Indonesia. There was one in the UK when I was there, no longer, but we're, you know, very connected regardless. And these materials that we're drawing from and making the links with facilitation in your world are very much evolving over the last 20 years. And Wendy actually was one of the original authors, so I'm very happy to have Wendy here with us, even though it's 3:30 a.m. Okay, so what we want to actually do with you is just tease out what might be your unique roles in public participation and or facilitation and the connection between those, and provide a bit of an overview on the key concepts to be effective when involving other people in decision making in particular, and explore the why and the when to involve people, but maybe why not? In what circumstances would you not involve the public? So that's a kind of overview of what we want to provide you as a takeout. And we'll step through the what and the who is the public, what is public participation, who is the public, a few critical elements. There are 6, but we're only going to go into exercises on 3 of them. The other 3 we'll have to do in another forum. As I mentioned, the why involve the public and the when would you not. So we've got 90 minutes and very interactive. We're happy to answer anything in the chat at any point in time. We're effectively asking you, you're muted because we were expecting lots of people, but we're happy if you actually want to unmute, if you haven't got the dogs barking and other stuff going on in the background, because there's 37 of us, so it might actually work if you want to unmute yourself. As I said, use the Zoom chat function. We're going to use Jamboard. Show of hands, anyone that's used Jamboard before? Some have, some haven't. So a bit of this is exploring tools. And when we get into the breakout rooms, which is twice, I'll lead the first one and Margie the second, but we're going to dip in and out just to check that you're okay with the activity. So hopefully we don't freak you out by, you know, just appearing and then disappearing, just letting you know. And we've got a few polls we're going to run as well. So when you get to those breakout rooms, if you could take note of the room that you're going into. So before you click yes, you're going to join, make sure that you know that you're joining room 3 or room 5, because the Jamboard notepad will correspond with that. And the usual, when you're there, if you can pick a facilitator whose job it is to get everyone to contribute. We're not saying facilitator can't contribute a thing or two. That would be a bit harsh, but you know, over to you to work self-organize and do that report back as well. So that'll be a nice thing to do if we've got these lower numbers, which is great. So I wanted to just start out with a bit of a shout out to, you know, where you're coming from, where are you sitting there? So if I can just ask you to lean in and wave if you're from Australasia and Oceania, if that's where you're sitting right now. Margie, anyone else? I'm trying to get up the other people on the screen. No, we it? I think we're it. So who's coming to us from Asia? Lean in and wave. Got a few? Yeah, Howard? No? Ah, no. Yep. Sam, did I see you waving? Yeah. Lynn, thank you. And Bhavana? Nice, thank you. Who's coming to us from Africa? Anyone?
Archie.
Archie, nice. Welcome, welcome. And Europe? Yeah, a lot of people. Welcome, Pedja, Rena. Yeah, Hiltrud. Qatar. Hi. Hi. South America? Anyone? No one. I see no one. North America.
3:30 in the morning. That's because it's 3:30 in the morning.
I know. Antarctica. Have we got anyone? Oh, it's amazing. I think it's, again, just hats off to the organisers. It's so good to be here and nice that we can do this. So just to start with, we want to set the tone and see who we have in the room as well and how much experience you have with public participation. So that's our first poll, and Rengen's going to start that poll for us. And I'm just looking at the chat here. Yeah, so there's, yeah, I know, if you're actually in Istanbul, you could be in one or the other, right? Just depending which side of the Bosphorus you're on. So Rengen's going to launch this poll for us, and the second part to it is, what are you hoping to get out of this session? So a bit of your expectations. Is that okay, Rengen?
I'm now launching the first question.
Rena, thank you. Thank you, Rena.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Okay, so hopefully you can see that poll. So how much experience do you have with public participation? Don't know what it is. You've been engaged. I have some experience. I have a lot of experience, or I could be teaching this session. We don't mind. We share. I have some experience, yeah. So this is the stronger one at the moment. We've got a few people still to go. Nearly done. 83% have voted. Nice. Yeah. So there's a few people that aren't familiar at all, and a few that have a lot of experience as well. So, you know, this is normal, isn't it? We've got that whole mix. So yeah, hopefully you get something out of today. We certainly would like to think even just meeting each other like this is fabulous. So we might call that at 1 minute. That's okay. Thank you. So some experience. And if we can get a snapshot of that, that'd be great. I think we can, Wendy or Margie might do that, or Rena or Rengen. Just before
would you like me to do the second question?
Yeah, thank you, Rena.
All right.
Thanks, Rengen, for the capturing it. So what are you hoping to get out of the session? We're giving you some categories. We thought we'd make the job a bit easier. So learn about public participation and community engagement. They can be interchangeable terms for some people. Learn a bit about the IAP2 sort of framework. Understand what participation or engagement is versus facilitation. Expand my facilitation practice. Not sure. So any results coming in yet?
I think it's not on the screen. So Rena,
it's got to be relaunched.
Yeah, you might need to relaunch it. I think it got unlaunched somehow.
I just relaunched it, and I hope that worked.
I think somebody else relaunched it at the same time.
Ah, there we go. We're open. We're open for business.
Sorry.
Oh, it's a joy, these things, aren't they?
Yeah.
New toys that we play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a few, learn about what it is, understand, you know, how it relates or versus facilitation, great, and expand facilitation practice, great. You'll get some of all of that, definitely. Okay, I think that might do us. Great, thank you so much. And if we can get a little image of that, that'd be great.
Old school.
Yeah, why not? Okay, so I'm going to just explore a bit about the what, and we might just move those polls off the screen if we could. That's great. So Anna, it said show us results. Is this in response to that what we just did?
No, you just have to close it off the screen. Oh yeah.
Anna, you wanted to see the results of the poll?
Sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, is that okay? So a lot of people wanting to understand what it is versus facilitation and learn a bit more about it. That's fabulous. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what is it? What is public participation? Well, the IP2 definition would be something like this. It's very much around process. So it's any process that involves the public, so that's key, in problem solving or decision making. So it's always about making a decision or making a change and uses that input in actually making the decision. So it's a kind of an evolution of bringing people in and actually then advising them how their input actually affected the decision or the change. And the little quote here on the right-hand side really just reiterates that it's not about giving away control, which is what some people worry about, but it does mean being transparent and honest, as well as thinking about what will help you make decisions well before you've actually got to do it. So it's very much, you know, a lot of the classic rule about 80% of the effort goes into planning and 20% in the delivery. That's the world that we operate in a lot here. Paul's asked, can it be just for consultation, not making a decision? Sure. And actually, we're going to give you a little bit of a framework that you might have seen before, but that'll give you something to think about. How do you actually scale what you're doing and how you're building people in? So thanks, Paul, for that.
So I want to add one little thing with Paul. He's actually asked another question earlier. We're going to talk in a little bit, like Tanya said. So challenge us again when we get to that point. But I think the important thing here is it's intentional. You're asking for input from the public because you want that input. So if you can remember that for a little while, we'll circle back on your question.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. Thanks, Wendy. It's about, yeah, that power sharing aspect. So yeah, fabulous. Do chip away and add notes in there too. So actually, I'm inviting you to come into that Zoom chat, sing out if you're unsure of how to do that. But effectively, when we say what is public participation, we also talk around a range of skill sets or not so much disciplines, but just what we do on the day-to-day. So we've got this idea that public participation actually builds on a lot of other skills and disciplines, but also just people's practices and communities of practice. So facilitation's in there, communications, public relations. It's about conflict resolution. It's about organizational development. It's about mediation. You know, there's two blanks there. What are other sort of things that you think come to mind when you think, what is public participation for you? What would you put on those other seats that you see here?
Okay.
Participatory strategic planning, yeah. Anna? Sorry, Bhavana? Community development, yeah. Large-scale intervention, yeah. Other things are sometimes research, public policy and research. Celebrate. Urban planning, yeah. Anna, are you an urban planner by any chance? Same here, for my sins. Yeah, there's a whole host of things that, you know, really feed into the practice of public participation. But I think I'm going to move us along. And the point is, it's different, it's distinct public participation in that it is a deliberate effort to get that public input. And that's what makes it different to some of these other disciplines. The explicit purpose of using that input in the decision-making process. Margie's going to talk a bit later to some ethics that speak to that, how the practitioner operates to make sure that that happens. So I mentioned, and this is about tips for effective approaches, critical elements. We call these the kind of top critical elements. So really, effectively, we're saying, firstly, we need to clarify the decision and the decision-making process. What is this thing that we're engaged or that we're involved in doing? You know, we might be working within organizations, government bodies, industry, people who are making decisions and seeking that input. But what is the actual decision? So we're going to do an exercise on that. We need to think who needs to be involved, the level of participation, and that speaks to Paul's point, embracing the core values, thinking about the whole process and how the process for a project or program or an initiative aligns with the community process and how the community can feed into that, and evaluation. So the last three here are a bit light touch. The first three we're going to get into an exercise pretty quickly. So firstly, the decision. I'd love to have conversations and you know, I like to hear other people's stories. I'm just going to share you a bit of a story on this classic conundrum in our world of public participation where, say I've got a client and they've asked me to, I worked on high-speed rail, for instance, in the UK, and we were told to come up with a new alignment for a high-speed rail between London and West Midlands, but it was really Birmingham, within the year, and it needed to be fast rail, so as straight as possible. And so that was a big project, and it's still going on 10, 11 years later, and it's just starting construction. But obviously there was a lot of people. Our task was come up with one route, and people wanted to talk about a lot of other things, like, well, actually, couldn't you be spending the money on a range of other projects? Couldn't you actually be trying to affect the same change? One of the objectives was to get people out of planes into trains, out of cars onto trains. Couldn't you do that in other ways? And so that is the first task, getting clear, well, you know, is it about getting people from A to B, or is it actually we need a rail? And another example I've got here is being clear on what that process is for making the decision. This is another similar linear project where we had 3 routes for a road, and in 2017, if you can see my screen there, can you see the time frame I just put up on the right? So I got involved in the early 2018 community workshops when they'd gone from 3 routes to 1, and they said to the community, what do you care about? And of course, there's a lot of people on this project who don't want the road. They don't want a new road. But the government was pretty clear, no, that's a policy decision. This is about a new road, and the new road is going to happen. And we've selected the route, and you told us you want to talk about these 3 things: walking and cycling, urban design, and environment. So that's me talking with the urban design team in the middle of the workshop, and effectively we'd narrowed the remit, or the client had narrowed the remit to say, this is what the community told us they cared about, this is what they can influence. And so you're stepping out the process and you're being clear each time. The community can influence these things, even though they're going to care about a lot of other things. So it's getting that clear in your head. I'm seeing, actually, Paul's got some nice comments in there again, and I think that's great. I'm going to keep participatory governance. Is that, I think, Jawa, that was a reference to the skills from earlier. Yeah. Okay, well, what I want to do is actually take us into our first breakout room. And I want you to explore a case study. So I'm not going to put anyone on the spot and say, did you read the landfill case study before you came here? But we actually sent it out thinking there's some people that like to pre-read and there's others that will just do it on the fly. So over to you. We're going to give you 10 minutes in a breakout room to read a case study, which is called Litterville Landfill. And effectively, we've given you a scenario. These are real scenarios, by the way. So we've given you what happened in this scenario, what's happening next, who the stakeholders are, and issues. And we want you to actually explore, well, what is this project, this Litterville landfill project all about? You know, what's the decision to be made here from the decision maker's perspective, and who is actually making that decision? And who else might need to be involved? So these 3 questions, we're going to give you over to you to come up and talk in your small groups about them. And if I click on this link here, you should get the Jamboard. And Margie's just posted in the chat the link to the Jamboard. So hopefully you all can see that. And I've got already a lot of people joined, so that's great. And if you can see up the top, the expand frame bar, you can see once you get past the first slide, this is where you really need to take note of that room that you're going into. So Ringan's going to start putting us in breakout rooms. Margie, Wendy and I will come and join you and just check in that you're okay with the task. But pick the facilitator, pick the person that's going to scribe, jot down things, draw things, do sticky notes. We want you to go in once you've read that frame, and you can click in and out of it in Jamboard by opening up that bar or closing it. Go to the room that you're in. So if you get put into room 3, you're going to have to add one. You go into slide 4, okay? So you'll there, in that case, be in room 3. But just note, it's one off because the first slide gives you the landfill Litterville case study. So a little bit of work, but it's very fun, and we'll just do a few little polls afterwards as well. So any questions, or we'll see you in the rooms? So we've got 38 participants. I reckon there could be about, what, 4 or 5 people in each room?
I've opened 6 rooms, if it's okay for you. 6 to 7.
That's great.
Per room. Or if
Yeah,
you
that's
want to
lovely.
open one more.
No, 6 is great. Thank you.
Okay. All you need to do is to click join button that will appear in your screens.
Note the number before you do that.
Okay. See you shortly.
Paul, would you like to stay here, or would you like to join any breakout room? Same question for Trimul. I can't hear you. Can you please open your microphone?
Sorry, I was reading the case in my other screen. I now realize that you're doing the breakouts. I'll join now.
Okay.
You.
See.
the landfill problem will not be solved. So it needs to balance these needs of the community and of really finding a site in the area.
Yeah.
And actually, other things we had as a problem, like it is a change project, so the public needs to be ready for the change. Also, people are maybe just seeing their own and not seeing the big picture, like they only see they don't want the site near to their own home, but they don't really see that it means what it means and what is the common interest in this one. And that was about where we, as far as we came, and you see it here on the
yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? And like, we've given you this scenario and you've got to think into it and assume a lot of things. But I also flagged, I noticed this one too, people don't understand the reason, and if they don't, then it's going to be hard to move them on, and that's sometimes an issue. Thank you for that report back. What about, I'm going to go to that one with the drawings. Can I just check in on that and see what people have said here? So let's have uni stakeholders meeting, find the contributions from each stakeholder group. So you've got issues, is that on the water side? You've got grievances, you've got lack of consultation.
You are very clever, Tanya. You spotted, right? So yes, that's the yellow is the diagnostic of the situation, and the green is possible solution. But we did not have enough time to do the meeting. But at least we got a proposal for doing what we consider to be segmented meetings, or as I wrote it, I think you need to speak with each stakeholder individually first.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done here, isn't there, to fix that relationship. Thank you. So I'm conscious of time, and we're going to share all this with you, so you'll get this little insight into the world of how do you work out who is the decision maker, what's it all about, and who to involve. So I'm just going to take you back a minute. Hey, can you see my slides? Great. So a quick poll, who is the decision maker in this scenario? Can we run this poll, Rena or Rengen? Or I could run it.
I've done it.
Ah, cool. Yeah, so we've got some people thinking it's the municipal councils, it's the community, some all of the above. My screen's frozen, it can't see the rest of the all of the above. A few more people to vote. It's really tricky because the reality is our worlds that we work in public participation and facilitation, they're a bit messy sometimes. So it looks like it's the regional agency, but obviously the other people will need to play a role, won't they? So all of the above, this is interesting. And I think we're going to get into that with the next exercise that Margie will take us through in a minute on what that actually can mean if other people have an influence. So thank you for that. And the key takeout when you do that thinking, you know kind of who's who, you're starting to go, okay, this is the person making the decision, but what's the decision? So the decision in this case would typically be something like this, and this becomes the language that you would use in this scenario. So we'd normally say, you know, we're going to select a new landfill that can be operational within 2 years and serve the projected needs of the community for the next 20 years, 50 years, whatever it might be. And that's what we call that whole first step, that critical step, know the decision. And the second aspect is know who's who. Who's the decision maker? Who are the public? And we talk, when we think about who the public is, sometimes using frameworks like the orbits. And this is the notion that there's no one public. People will have different perspectives and different hats, and they might actually decide that they want to be pretty close to the decision being made, the new landfill, or they might actually just be happy to watch and observe and check it out in the paper or the, you know, social media and keep an eye on it, but not participate. And it's when they perceive themselves potentially impacted, they're likely to move in and out of these orbits, which is why I like that construct of the orbits when you're thinking about who should be involved in any process. This is a little image of that road project I talked about, the workshop I facilitated or was involved in a couple of years ago. Who is in the room in this scenario? Can you just do a little, in the Zoom chat, notice anything about the people in the room here? Yes, yes, we do need to approach stakeholders separately beforehand. Sorry, that's not Rengen. Just picking up other comments here. Those affected by the decision, yes, that's right. Neighbourhood, sometimes decision makers, yeah. So yes, thank you, Lynn. Yes, there were a lot of grey hairs and there were a lot of men, and yes, it was multi-ethnic. The reality was, when we find ourselves in rooms like this, sometimes it's good to point it out. It's like, wow, who's in the room? And we actually did a bit of an exercise. I got people to stand up at the start of this session, and if you're born in 1940, please stand at this end of the room. If you're born in 1980, and I got told off because people were in that room who were born in 1930 and 1920. They were at this function. And also we had people born in 2000. But I could say, look, there's a bunch of people who aren't in the room, and we're not actually stopping at this forum. We've got more to do. We need to think about who's not here because they're too busy, because they're just not interested. It's not on their radar. And maybe some people think that government actually is the best place to make the decision and they're not getting involved. And we like to think of these people that they're out there, but they're kind of like unicorns. We kind of, you know, we know they exist, but we don't see them a lot. So with that, these are the first two critical aspects: know the decision and know the who. So the what and the who. And Margie's going to take us through the third critical component, which is determine the level of public participation. So over to you, Margie. I'll stop sharing. You okay,
Sorry,
Margie?
I was on. I muted myself because I had a barking dog next door. So a few minutes ago. So I'm going to start with a little bit of performance art. But I want to ask you first: has anyone? Some of you may be aware of the IAP2 spectrum. Who maybe sort of give me a wave if you've heard of the IAP2 spectrum before? Yeah, so there's a few of you. So what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to go to the Jamboard and we're going to get you to build a spectrum. But I just want to give you a bit of an overview of it. What it really is about is helping us to define how much, help us to work with our decision makers to get them to define how much influence a stakeholder may have over a particular decision, or how much influence we want them to have over that decision. So what I'm going to do is a bit of a Bob Dylan art piece as a start, and I'm going to show some flashcards, and the first one is inform. And when we talk about inform, we're really saying, here's some information. The next one on the spectrum is consult. And what we're saying is, here's some information. Tell us what you think about that information. Give us some feedback. The next one is involve. Tell us some information. Give us some feedback. And we're really going to try very hard. We're going to try very hard to understand what it is that you're wanting us to learn about what you need. And then we have collaborate. And collaborate, we're going to sit down with you and really deeply understand what it is that you would like to see going forward. And the very controversial one of empower, which in IAP2 terms means you tell us what you think is the decision that we should make about this particular project. So the spectrum is a way of doing that. What I'm going to do is go from, I'm just going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share the Jamboard now. And if you maybe could put a link to the Jamboard, Tanya, while I'm doing that. Tanya?
I was muted too. It's a different Jamboard, so yeah. Everyone, here we go.
So, so sharing the Jamboard here. So what the key elements of the spectrum are that you can see here is that we have up here the levels of the spectrum, and they are the ones that I just spoke to you about. And then on the side we have here the public participation goal. Now when we're talking about the public participation goal, we're saying what is our objective or our goal, the thing that we're trying to achieve through this particular engagement. And then we have the very important promise to the public. And the promise is really about what are we offering the public in terms of their level of influence. So what I'm going to do is, again, get these guys to send you into groups. And in those groups, what I want you to do is to play with this Jamboard and to build the spectrum. So what you're trying to do is to build the different levels so that the words here represent the level, and this we've done an example here for you, represent the level of influence in terms of the goals. And the yellow sheets go in the goals part, and the blue ones go in the promise part. And this probably shouldn't take you that much time, but again, and so I just want you to quickly do that as a group. It's like a bit of a puzzle, and have a discussion about that. And then we'll come back and we'll have a bit more of a discussion about the spectrum. So can we get people into groups? And again, just please remember that number, that magic number, when you go in there and go into the Jamboard that's relevant to that. Okay. I think are we going to the same groups?
Doesn't matter.
Rena, Rengen? We're going to the same groups?
No, I have regenerated the groups.
Okay, so there'll be different groups.
Different groups, yes.
No one seems to have moved yet.
Is it possible to stop your screen share that I can see who are here?
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, it would be if I could find the part that, right. Okay, stop. Is that better?
Yes.
Great.
Just while people are moving, I think it's great. Some people have put where they're from on their name. It's nice to just go, that's where you're from. So I changed mine to Australia. It's a good idea. Pedro gave me the idea from Serbia.
Are you going to go to a group, Tanya?
I am. I'm just going to have a quick word with Rengen.
Okay.
I've got 2 coming up. What are you going into, Margie? So we've just got Anil and Howard waiting to go off. Are you okay, Howard? Anil?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, do you want to go to a breakout room?
Yeah, in fact, but the thing is the network connectivity is very, very poor. That's the reason I'm not able to log in.
Oh, okay. Do you want to try again to go in a breakout room?
I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, so you can go down to more and you should be able to join a breakout room and it will still remember which one you were allocated to.
Sorry,
Reagan,
I'm facing a very poor network connectivity. Sometimes voice is also.
conclude these bits. 5:10.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay.
So they're coming back.
Please let me know when you want the polls 4 and 5.
Yeah, they're coming up.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Pilchard has a lovely background.
Oh, thank you. It's our home, actually.
This looks like very sunny.
Yes, it is. You know, I'm in Finland and now the summer really has started. It's very short here, the summer, but now it's there.
Looks like we're mostly back.
We're going to understand your decisions, but we're not necessarily going to work that through to the extent that we would in terms of collaborate, and similarly then consult is a lower level. So the degrees between the different ones, you know, are probably not great, but I guess that's the point. A little bit of a change of language can really change what the public may expect out of the process. And what our major goal is really is to get our decision makers to be really clear about that. You know, in a sense where, I mean, while of course, you know, collaborate and empower is great for democracy and for the public, we don't really tend to push people towards that. What we tend to say is that what's really important is that you're very honest and very direct to the public about what it is that they're going to get, so that they're not led along the garden path, really, in expectations.
So would collaborate then in a sense also mean that you leverage the strengths of each other?
Yes.
Whereas involving would be more like getting into the nuts and bolts of it together.
Yes, I think, yes, that's right. I mean, yeah, collaborate really is more of a sharing process. We're really going to work together and really nut this out. Whereas involve is just a little lighter touch than that. But as I say, look, the levels and degrees on that, but you know, some of the language then could guide how you're actually talking to the public about what it is that that you're offering them, and that's an important thing to do, to make it clear.
So the participation spectrum here is according to the level of degree, inform being the lowest and empower being the highest.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Margaret, the collaboration level seems to be seeking support from, you know, the public and the stakeholders. So post the discussion, it seems to be asking for support from them and keeping them informed. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I tend to try and think that the support and the ownership is a byproduct of the fact that you're actually giving over some control. So I like to think of it more as how much control are we prepared to give the members of the public in relation to that particular decision. And we all know that many of our governments don't in fact give a lot of control. They want to keep a lot of that control. And you know, so the other side of saying is, well, that's fine, but start being really honest to your publics about that. And then what you're potentially facing is publics that go, no, that's not doable. We've got to actually, you know, have some say over these things. So I guess if you don't mind, well, I'm happy to continue the discussion, but let's just go to the next poll and then we'll come back to the.
I'll just add one point Margie, and that is that government makes lots of decisions. And the question is, which are the ones that are the most important for the public to have a say in? And clearly there's lots of decisions that we could care less. Let them make them. Who cares? It's a balancing point that's really challenging to figure out what decisions we need to ask for input from the public from, and which can be made behind closed doors and nobody cares.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Shall I just go to the, do you think go to the poll or? Yep. Okay. So what I'm going to do is get this poll launched, and I guess what I'm wanting to do now is just to test a little thing, and that is like when the public looks at this, looks at the level of influence. And so if you think about the Littleville case study that we talked about earlier, and you're a member of the public and you came along to that first meeting, and you know you're potentially impacted because the proposed landfill is close to where your house is, what level of influence do you think that you would like to have over the decision? So would it be inform, consult, involve, collaborate, empower? So this is the level of influence that the stakeholder would like to have over the decision. So we've got a few empower and collaborate, quite a number of involve. So maybe we'll end that poll if everyone's had the chance to. So mostly we're saying involve. Okay, so let's now perhaps go to the other poll. Next poll. And this is now think about the level of influence that the decision maker, or where the decision maker might think that the public should be. So the first time you're saying, what do you think the decision maker would say about how much influence they want the public to have over the decision in relation to the landfill? So the regional authority. Okay, I think we can close it at that. So it's interesting, isn't it? So what we said was the public wanted to have at least, you know, most of you said the public wanted to at least be involved. And then when it comes to the decision makers, they're saying, well, we actually just want the public to, you know, we just think the public should just be consulted on this. Now, this is why we get ourselves in a bit of a sticky situation with the public, because we always have this sort of discrepancy between what the decision maker wants. And that's, I guess, that's one of the key things that we work with as public engagement professionals, because when you get that difference, you get a bit of a, you know, you can get a bit of a clashing, can't you, of wills, because people don't feel that it's fair and they're not getting the level of influence over it. So any other thoughts on the spectrum before I move on? Is that a useful model to you? Yeah, useful?
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so for the last word in the spectrum, the empower, you have empower there. I'm just thinking about the term here. Can we actually rephrase this into co-powerment? Because this is a mutual learning process, you know, between civil society or citizens and municipal councils represented by the government. Could we say co-powerment rather than empower, as in handing in the final decision-making authority to citizens? Could we say co-empower?
You could say co-power, but also I guess one of the misunderstandings about empower is that I guess people think, well, we're saying that we're handing over the decision to the public. What we actually mean by empower is that we will actually allow the public, but we will still make the decision. So we'll still take the responsibility for the decision.
Well, truly at the empower level, the people make the decision. This is how elections work. There's nobody that says, I don't like the results, never mind. I mean, That's not really democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So at the empower, it's the extreme end of the spectrum. The public makes the decision. That's what empower means.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got 9 minutes left.
Okay, Teresa, I can see your hand. I don't.
Yeah. Going from what Javed said just now, who enables the empowering to take place?
Well, I would say that the decision maker empowers the public, allows the public to make that decision.
It's a great point though, isn't it, Teresa? Because sometimes, many of you thought all of the above when we did the little poll, who was the decision maker? Sometimes the community can drive the change. Sometimes, right? It's case specific.
Okay,
Sorry, Maggie.
shall I move on?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So look, I want to just talk about the core values. And look, I have to say the core values are the thing that really, I guess, first inspired me about IAP2. And, you know, they are the values that we would bring into our engagement process. So they're process values for engagement. And most of them are probably pretty straightforward. You know, whether we get them right or not, but you know, I think the core thing that we're really saying is if you're actually calling something engagement, if you're actually promising that you're involving the public, you really need to follow through with that and give them some say over the decision making. And the ones, I guess, that I just wanted to sort of highlight a little bit are the ones that are getting a little bit more attention, I think, of late. And that's number 5, and that's about seeking input from participants in designing how they participate. So we're far more conscious of that these days, I think, in that, you know, we don't just sort of deliver processes to people. We actually sit down and ask them and work out whether the processes are suitable for them. And the other one is number 7, and that's communicating to participants about how their inputs influence the decision. Because what happens often is that we might engage people, but then we sort of take what they say and then we probably forget to tell them how much they've actually changed what it is that we're doing. I'm seeing some smiles to that one. So then we have the code of ethics, and I know you've got a similar code in terms of IAF, but the code of ethics is really what drives us as practitioners as opposed to the practice itself. So as you know, you'll get these in the slide pack. And there's just a couple more things. One is this critical components in terms of the decision process, and really I guess what we're doing here is acknowledging that you know, a decision isn't just a decision in a point of time. What often happens is there's a series of different decisions around processes and projects that happen, and the community might be engaged at different to different levels at different stages. And then we have the techniques, and what as public engagement practitioners we do is we actually wait to the very end to focus on techniques. We tend to think about what's the spectrum level, what are we trying to achieve, and then we kind of look at what the techniques are relevant to that. And then finally, just, you know, evaluation and adapt and content process relationships. I know that stuff is all pretty well known to you. So I'm going to flip back to Tanya.
Thanks, Maggie. And I feel like we've skipped through a lot, and I feel like we could just go on forever because we are obviously very passionate about this stuff. And we can't possibly go through everything, but I want to give you another chance to just reflect on the why. So why are we doing this, and how, again, is it different to your practice as facilitators? I see there's a good chat going on, and a reminder that we're going to share this slide pack with you, and reach out to us if you've got any queries or questions as well. But We've got 4 minutes left. So I can't go through everything I've got here, but I will endeavour to just give you a little bit of a conversation there on that point, on the why. So when it comes to the why are we doing this? Here's 4 big reasons. Hopefully you can see my screen here, the why involve the public. And essentially, we would probably all as practitioners in this space be saying it's number 4, it's to your advantage. There's a value in it, yes. As a base case, you're doing it because you have to, because government or legislation requires you to. Sometimes it's because you're desperate and you've got to do it because you've been forced into it. Your hand is forced. That's the second one. When you've got the threat, they're more like, I call them the sticks. They're the sticks and these are the carrots. And it's better to work at the carrot end if you can. You know, what value can people bring to your process? It's usually also that wonderful turning point where sometimes the leaders or decision makers we're working with see the value when they get the retired engineer who's actually really useful for the project, and you know, they get free consultants, they get that local information, and you know that they're enlightening times when we're working on these projects, when they move away from just because we have to. Margie and I have been working together for over 20 years, I worked out, and we've worked with a lot of engineers in the past, and it's wonderful to see that transformation in their practice. And for them to become the advocates for this stuff. And because
we're converting them one by one.
That's right, yeah. And what we're trying to get to is that sweet spot where we've got people that are happy with an outcome that's technically feasible, it's doable, it's also maybe going to be, you know, okay in terms of cost. Environmentally, it ticks the right boxes, and hopefully publicly acceptable, socially acceptable. That's what we're trying to get to. So just a concluding little thought in the Zoom chat, based on what we've been exploring, and think about that landfill, are there situations that you can think of when you would not involve the public? When would you not involve the public? Just some notes in the chat is fine, or unclick. I've got 1 minute of your time left, and we want to finish on a poll just to check in with you. Yeah, so COVID, this is great, Anna. It's the same, like, you know, yeah, it's really been fascinating to watch people and their trust in government or not as to whether they'll listen to that. Crisis situation, national security, times of war, there are a lot of bushfires and floods in Australia. Yeah, thank you, you got it. So I'm coming to a close. This is good because you can also map that back to the spectrum. What does that mean? Sometimes you're just going to inform, not always needing to empower or collaborate or even involve. Good processes, you know, in public participation, they do improve decisions, they do build bridges, they do build relationships, but the public needs certain things so that they know it's authentic and genuine. And the top message here is the key. Messy is good, get used to it. It's a great world. So we try to manage groups and scenarios when we're facilitating. Sometimes you've got to let it be messy and it will work its way out if you've planned well. So I just want to conclude with that final poll about your expectations. And if you've got any other questions, then happy to take them outside. And as I said, we'll send you this so you've got our contact details. If we can just finish with the poll, that'd be great. Yeah, when there are no options, that's right, Petra. I'm still reading all these wonderful chats. If we can save the chats as well, that'd be fabulous. And we got a poll coming.
Yes, it has been launched actually. Can you see it?
Ah, great.
Oh, yeah.
No, we can't.
No, I can't see it.
You need to leave to share the share.
Ah, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Leaving the share. Traps for new players. No, I'm getting rid of that share. I'm going to stop the share, and here we go.
Now we can't see the poll still.
And we're back in the room.
Can we launch the poll again?
Okay. Can you all see it now?
So we pre-coded for you. Yes, thank you. We could have just said yes, no, but we kind of wanted to relate it back to what we set off with.
I only saw it for half a second and it disappeared.
It's there, but
Okay,
yeah, we relaunched it.
Thanks,
Maggie.
Sorry if you already did put your things in, you're going to have to.
We love questions. We'll see you another time for them. Connect with us. Thank you, everyone.
Our email addresses are on the first slide.
Yeah.
That's right. And we do have some, we probably do have some online training coming up, Tanya and I. So if you are interested in joining an IAP2 training course, get in touch with us.
That's probably good, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you very much to Rena and Ringen for this, and to Jawad, as I said, he's the reason I'm here today too. It's fabulous, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was fabulous.
Thank you
It
so
was
much.
amazing.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was
Thanks
a
a lot.
great contribution, Tanya, and then Margaret. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you, Ringen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I will now put everyone in the waiting room for the next session. It will be creativity in coronavirus times. You will get the presenter in so she gets prepared for a few minutes, then you will be let back in.
Great. Can we, did we save the chat? Is it possible?
I did.
Lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See you the next session.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rengen. Thank you, Rena.
Thank
you very much. Thanks for being with us. It was so nice.
Yeah. Good. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.